Wow. So we disagree strongly about which game on Auburn's schedule is the most important.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up with the Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend, hanging out with us on today's show. Dap and I each have listed our top 3 most important games on Auburn's schedule this upcoming season, and our lists are totally different. So we're highlighting really 6 different games on Auburn's schedule because we disagree so vastly, and I think that's a good thing. I'll start, Dap. I think the most important game on Auburn's schedule, I've said it over and over and over again, is when they host Florida. 3rd game of the season, when SEC play starts. And I think it's important for a few different reasons, Dap. I think one of them is, okay, if you can start 3-0, beat Baylor, take care of business in the non-con, and then obviously hosting Florida, one, that means a ton, right? I think it gives you confidence. It's Golesh's first big home game, but also the ties and the storylines behind it, right? With Eric Singleton returning to Jordan-Hare Stadium. And obviously these 2 head coaches were kind of tied together in a weird way during this coaching carousel. Where whoever wins this game, whether it's Florida, whether it's Auburn, I think they're going to get a massive, massive bump. And when it comes to how people view these programs that are both kind of in similar situations, both underachieved last year, I think this one has a chance to really make Auburn be in a great situation to overachieve in 2026. Or if they lose this one, I think they could be behind the 8 ball early.
Well, you couldn't be more wrong. No, I'm just joking. The weird part about this exercise, and full disclosure, is I agree with you on every other one that you'll reveal as being a very important game.
Yeah, the 6 games mentioned, there's an argument for all of them.
Exactly. And I feel weird even trying to counter such a strong case that you just made, because dadgummit, as you're talking, my head's nodding and I was trying to hold my chin to keep it from happening. But I think for the purpose of this exercise, we have to put them in some sort of pecking order.
Yeah.
Where we feel like, so yes, I agree with you. All excellent points. And I think the biggest one of all is the Sumrall piece. The last thing you want to do, and I know it's just window dressing and I know it's just fandom, but you dang sure don't want to lose to the coach that you perceive to lose out on. Mm-hmm. And have the fan base, we have the better coach. Our coach beat your coach. And I get that's just fans and it doesn't matter. But perception nationally and maybe recruiting wise, it sure would be nice to go head to head and beat that coach, and it looked like you had the better choice.
But Alex Golesh knows this. He's not stupid. He knows that every sign was pointing for Sumrall to Auburn, and then things changed. Like, do either of us believe that Golesh was the first call that John Cohen made? I personally don't think so. I personally don't believe that it was, and we kind of picked up on that when Golesh was telling the story when he got the call at 1:30 in the morning or whatever. It's fine. I like that Golesh is Auburn's head coach. I have no issue with it. But he knows this storyline. And that competitive dude, you're going to think that that's not a part of it. It's probably not in the forefront, but you're telling me that's not in his brain at all?
No, and I think too, Zach, one other point real quick before I get to my – there seems to be a race to relevancy for both of these programs.
Well said.
Both of them are kind of on the same trajectory, and they have been the last 3 years. Who is going to be the first one to get there? And this game may go a long way in that. So thank you for making me nod my head and agree with you on one that I didn't have on my list.
Will Auburn fans care about Eric Singleton coming back at all? We don't play Cam Coleman, obviously.
Auburn fans are a little bit snarky about that. I remember the Flanagan stuff, the Aiden Holloway stuff. They do. There is a little bit of that, and that is the only thing about this whole new era of college football that's kind of it's kind of got a little bit of energy to it because you used to have that in professional sports with free agency when they returned home to their previous team. And, there used to be highlight videos put up in pro sports. There will be none of that when Singleton comes. So yeah, they'll care. They'll let them hear it. They will.
Good. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Yeah. So I've got Auburn hosting Florida as the most important game of the season. You disagree.
Yeah. I'm wearing a color shirt that is clue to mine, right? It's a little bit, it's a hint to who I'm going to pick. Baylor Bears. And I did it last year, and people are like, good call, Dap. You did it last year, and how well did that go for us? How important was that win? Well, I think at the time it was extremely important. And
the vibes were immaculate.
The vibes were immaculate, and they were 3-0. And so here's why I think. Number one, I always think if it's your first game and it's against a Power 4 opponent, it's huge. Secondly, the game getting moved off campus, you definitely don't want to lose this game in Atlanta when people could have said, yeah, but if you played that game in Auburn, you'd have won.
If they lose, that'll be said.
That'll be the first narrative.
Yeah.
And then it's also the first overall game of the Golesh era. You don't want to lose that. And I also always think that winning a first game, except for last year, typically sets the tone for your season. And so for all those factors, the first big game against a Power 4 opponent, you got to win it. And it sets the tone, and especially since it's in Atlanta and you cannot lose it. It might be big more for the sake of you can't lose it than it is for winning it, right? So I think that's why it's the biggest game.
Yeah, if you lose it, tell me it's not important.
The narrative is going to be brutal. Yep.
Yeah, the storylines going into this, I mean, we've already done this a little bit. I think it's fun because I think Auburn's in a better spot than a year ago. But I mean, just think about the storylines going into Auburn Baylor last year and the storylines going into this one. I mean, it's just it's a totally different world. And a lot of that's based off of quarterbacks, right? Instead of, can Jackson or Arnold figure it out? Can Sawyer Robertson, stay as one of the hottest quarterbacks to finish, the previous year? Now it's, okay, can DJ Lagway find a way to revitalize his career at, wait for it, Baylor? Or, is Byrum Brown that guy? Can he continue to do what he's done at USF?
And the Washington narrative, the running back, the Bryson Washington narrative.
Sure.
He's got the Singleton. He's on the flip side of the Singleton argument for Auburn, although he's not going back to Waco, thankfully. He's playing in Atlanta. But the Baylor fans that are there will boo him. I think they will.
Yeah. Will we be able to will the boos be audible, though? Will you be able to tell that they're booing him?
I don't know. That's going to be interesting.
I bet there's a shockingly few amount of Baylor fans there. That's my prediction.
I hope so.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I don't think they got a lot of tickets, Darrell. I don't think they got a lot of tickets. Not saying they can't buy them off the secondary market. Our friends at Game Time, but curious to see how that works out. All right. We disagree on the second most important game of the season as well. That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, let's continue the conversation about Auburn and Baylor. The only line for Auburn football right now is that Auburn-Baylor line, and Auburn is still favored by 7.5 points. I kind of think it's going to grow over time, Darrell. I really do. I think there's going to be a lack of confidence in Baylor, and I think a lot of the money is going to follow Alex Golesh and Byrum Brown in this game. But regardless, other things happening at FanDuel, you can use one of your profit boosts on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. Darrell, if I win,
that's what I was wondering. That's what I was wondering.
I'll bring you.
You are reading my mind. I was going to say, who are you bringing, Zach?
All right. I'm bringing you, my guy. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at TurboTax. Darrell, you used TurboTax a few weeks ago because you're like, refund. I don't want the taxes to follow me anymore.
Refund came a week ago already in my account. Bang.
Happy with it?
Happy with it.
Love it. Love it. You can pay just $150 right now and have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by the end of the month. So you only got a few more days. So hop on that turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. I went first last segment. You go first this segment. Second most important game on Auburn's schedule, according to Darrell Dapprich, is what?
Ole Miss.
Going to
Auburn.
Okay.
Yes, and Auburn has not beaten Ole Miss since 2021. There's a little bit on a losing streak. I think there is a time right now to capitalize on the departure of Lane Kiffin. I think you want Ole Miss to go back to what they were and their rightful place in the SEC before Lane Kiffin got there. It looked like in the last 3 or 4 years, Ole Miss and Auburn switched relevancy and spots in the SEC, and that needs to switch back. And with this tampering allegations with Golding and some of the stuff that's going on, the Deuce Knight being there now, it's a big game. And I think it's a big game for Auburn to kind of climb on the back of some of these teams that were above them the last few years and get back to where it needs to be. And Ole Miss is in the way of that. And they need to have their whole, destinies flip. So that's why I think that's it. You don't want to lose 4 in a row to Ole Miss or 3 in a row to Ole Miss and have a sustained losing streak against them. You don't. If it's Georgia, Alabama, I get it, but no. And so I think this is important, and that's why I have it as the second most important game.
Yeah, kind of an interesting note about this game. Well, actually, before that, you mentioned Deuce Knight being there. Jay Crawford's going to probably play more in that game.
That's right.
Deuce Knight will, unless something interesting happens there. So that'd be another one. What a moment that would be if Keyshawn Singleton or somebody gets to play on Jay Crawford. I think Auburn folks would love that. As far as leading up to that game, Auburn will be hosting LSU the week before, and for Ole Miss, they'll be in Texas the week before. And so I'm kind of curious. I think Ole Miss and Texas, they might be fighting for playoff opportunities. And what happens, that's going to be a physical game. It's going to be a big game. Not that Auburn and LSU won't be, but I do think what happens if Ole Miss loses that game to Texas and it kind of feels like the season's getting a little bit away from them, the pressure then is all on them. I think that could be a good thing for Auburn.
I do. Or is it that we can't afford to lose another one? We're going to come out and play desperate. We're going to get locked in. We're going to get focused. We're going to get regrouped because we just got boat raced by Texas. I don't know. But that Texas Ole Miss game, both of these games are going to be physical, emotional. Auburn has no love lost for Lane Kiffin, no matter who's coaching or where he's coaching. There's this natural little feud and rivalry thing.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that is leading up to that game, Lane Kiffin, and I don't know, you're talking about LSU, that will say something stupid, I'm sure, about Auburn, and I want to see how Golesh responds instead of laying back and taking it like Hugh Freeze did. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. I'm not going to go that direction with it. So yes, my number 2 is LSU. I think Auburn hosting LSU is the second most important game this season. So it's a week before the one that you labeled the number 2. So those last 2 games in October, though, obviously going to be crucial. It's right in the middle of that brutal stretch where Auburn goes to Tennessee, to Georgia. They host LSU, then they go to Ole Miss. I think we all agree that's the most brutal chunk of Auburn's schedule. And I think that's the most winnable of these, maybe with the exception of at Tennessee, just because we don't know exactly what that offense is going to look like since the Joey Aguilar thing. It seems like he's not going to play. But as long as you keep suing, like you probably can eventually get in. So we'll just see what they do with that. But I think LSU is going to be important. I'm not as sold on this LSU revamping their roster thing as everyone else is quite yet. And a lot of that has to do with the quarterback, with Sam Leavitt. If he's fully healthy, I think it's a different conversation. And their backup with Husan Longstreet. Auburn was in the thick of recruiting him a few years ago. I think he's good, unproven, but I think he's good. So I just think Lane Kiffin coming to Jordan-Hare Stadium, I think that's going to be electric. And I think the nature of all of it and where it's kind of positioned in the middle of that gauntlet part of your schedule, I think that makes it important.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that.
Yeah.
Definitely does. And that is a gauntlet. Good gosh. Is that a brutal stretch? So,
yeah, if you win 2 of those, though, it's like, oh my gosh, what can
wow.
we achieve?
Yes.
What's at stake here? Which would be great. All right, so I've got Baylor as the most important, then LSU. You have
you have
Florida.
Florida, yes.
It's a green shirt. I'll see your green shirt. Threw me off.
Yes.
You've got Baylor as the most important, Ole Miss second most important. I have Florida most important, and then I've got LSU second most important. We will we'll mention our third one. Once again, we disagree on all of these. So we're talking about 6 different games. That's next, right here, after this word from our friends at Mazda.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. South Carolina rolled past Ole Miss 85-48 to clinch a share of the SEC regular season title and lock down the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. The Gamecocks extended their win streak over Ole Miss to 21 straight. UCLA dominated Wisconsin 80-60 to secure its first outright Big Ten regular season championship in program history. The Bruins improved to 27-1 overall and remain unbeaten in conference play. And number 12 TCU stormed back from a 13-point fourth quarter deficit to beat Iowa State 80-73. The Horned Frogs now sit alone atop the Big 12 standings and are 1 win away from clinching another regular season conference crown. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Darrell, you run a company, you understand, like, okay, there's a million things you got to do. And when you need to hire an important position, it's important, but you can't like stop doing your other jobs that you have to do. Indeed makes that easy.
Man, I told you before, I have another one up right now. You want to know something really cool and convenient?
Yes.
It was a position or a job description from 3 years ago. We're hiring a similar. I just had to go back on and click on that title and click on that description, and it posted this for me. I didn't have to redo anything. Very, very convenient.
That's great. That's great. Listeners of this show can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed right here on Locked On Auburn. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, final few minutes on today's edition of Locked On Auburn. If you want our immediate reaction to the basketball game last night, we went live last night. It's up on YouTube, or if you're tuning in on audio, it should be just the show before this on your audio feed. Another quick programming note, Lindsay and I will go live tonight after Auburn baseball. They host West Georgia. So would love to see you there. I think the third most important game on Auburn's schedule, I mentioned it briefly earlier, is when they go to Tennessee. Darrell, if Auburn could beat Florida and beat Baylor, as you mentioned earlier, I think Vanderbilt becomes important. I think right now I'm picking Auburn to beat Vanderbilt. They'll be 5-0. 4-0. They'll be 4-0 going to Knoxville if they can figure out how to win those games. And once again, talking about storylines, talking about opportunity that's in front of you. Alex Golesh going to take on his former boss, where he play called and was the offensive coordinator for the best offense in college football when he was Tennessee's offensive coordinator under Josh Heupel. Alex Golesh, once again, like, he knows the storyline here. I'm sure he'll love seeing Josh Heupel, but he would also love beating him. And I think Auburn will be good enough to do it. They just got to execute on the road. And that's going to be, that's his first big road game. It is his first road game as an SEC head coach. So you talk about a statement if they beat Florida. Goodness gracious. Statement if they beat Florida, Vandy, and Tennessee. Alex Golesh and his time at Auburn becomes a national story if they win that game.
Yeah, it makes them 5-0, and that's huge, right? I mean, that makes them 5-0. He goes back to where he coached.
How many games did we win last year?
5.
Yeah,
year before.
Yeah,
5.
Yeah.
He goes to the place where he kind of learned his offensive, cut his teeth as an offensive coordinator. Yeah, I mean, I get it. It is. It absolutely is, and that's why it's so hard coming up with these lists, because of how many games are significantly big on this schedule. I mean, we didn't even mention Vanderbilt, right? I mean, there's
an argument for Vandy. There's an argument for Arkansas.
Yeah.
There's an argument for going to Mississippi State. I mean, those are the games you got to win, right?
You got to win them. Got to win them. Yep. If you want to get to 8 wins, you got to win them.
Yep. All right, you're number 3.
I have a feeling that if you want to win, to add to your point, if you want to get to 8 wins, I think you got to win the Tennessee game too. But anyway, we'll see.
Let's see. So Baylor, Southern Miss, Florida, Vandy.
So you could go 4-0, and then if you lost to Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, and Ole Miss, now you're 4-4.
Arkansas, Mississippi State, Samford. So that puts you at 7.
Yes. Yes. See, there you go.
Yeah. Or one of them. I guess it doesn't have to be Tennessee, but
right.
One of those in that gauntlet for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Agreed. All right. Your third most important game is what?
It's got to be Alabama. I've said it every year. Until you beat them, until you put that demon to rest and lay that down. And I know it's in Tuscaloosa, but I don't know. I mean, Auburn had an opportunity to win every single time at Jordan-Hare the last 3 years. And at some point, you can't let this streak keep going on and on and on like it did in the 70s. And it becomes that important. And I get it. It's in Tuscaloosa. But if you get this one on their home turf, your first year as a head coach, it's monumental. And it starts to sense a shift in some things that I think were there already. I mean, I thought there were some cracks in the veneer in Alabama this year, and there were some points where I thought really the season was going to fall apart. And credit to DeBoer and company that it didn't. They were able to wrangle up a playoff appearance, but I thought, their season could have easily. There was a point where I thought they were going to go 8-4, 7-5. Really, it looked that way.
Yeah.
So maybe you have an opportunity to kind of put a nail there and start to flip the narrative. And it's why it'll always be important until it's not, and until they stop this streak.
Yeah, you could say the same argument for Georgia. I mean, obviously, Alabama's the larger rival, but similar situations, right? I mean, Georgia's owned us for even longer than Alabama has. So, I guess last time you beat Georgia was 2017. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That is amazing to me that it's going on.
They also beat us in 2017 too.
Yeah.
So it's like we don't even really get to enjoy it. So very sad. Very sad.
Yeah.
For sure. Any games that we talked about and just didn't mention at all?
Well, I think we need to a little bit touch more on the Vanderbilt game because of the fact that Vanderbilt beat Auburn 2 years in a row with Pavia. Pavia is now gone. You dang sure don't want to lose 3 in a row to Vanderbilt. I mean, my God, so kind of like the Ole Miss thing, you want to start putting people in their proper places in the SEC. And I think they're about to find out what life's going to be like without a really, really dynamic quarterback and who carried that team.
I hope so. And there were pieces on I think them losing Eli Stowers is probably a larger deal than people are acting like it is. But most of it was Pavia for sure.
Yeah.
I also think Arkansas is interesting. You're hosting them and you want to win at Jordan-Hare, obviously, but Ryan Silverfield, when he was at Memphis, I believe he was 2-0 against Alex Golesh. And I think that's going to be something we talk a lot about.
I hope that's not a Hugh Freeze, Jerry Kill thing.
Yeah, me too.
When he was at New Mexico State.
I think the difference is I think Memphis is more equipped to win than South Florida is.
Right.
And Auburn is more equipped to win than Arkansas is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Hugh Freeze lost to him at Liberty and at Auburn, which is interesting. he lost to Jerry Kill.
Yeah, New
When he
Mexico
was at
State.
Liberty, New Mexico State beat him when he was at Liberty, and then they beat him the next year.
I can't believe New Mexico State beat Auburn.
I know that should have been everything anyway.
I just like felt numb watching that entire game. It's like, what is happening? Yeah, then Vandy doing it twice is just it's insane. It's unbelievable. So, all right, I think that about does it for today's show. Darrell, Dapprich, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Locked on Auburn with you Wednesdays and Fridays. People already know where to get your podcast and on YouTube here. And then we talked about the live we do with basketball, and then Sunday nights, 8:00 on the Barn.
Yep. Please like the video. Please subscribe if you're tuning in on audio. Please subscribe and leave us a review. Helps the show out a ton. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked on Auburn.